the town of Brooklyn, Iowa, the summer sun casts a warm glow on the streets. The community is a tight-knit one, where everyone knows everyone else. Among the town's residents is a 19-year-old Mollie Tibbetts, a bright young woman with a passion for running. Mollie is eagerly awaiting the start of her sophomore year at the University of Iowa, but for now, she's home for the summer, embracing the familiar comfort of her small town. Mollie's boyfriend Dalton and his brother Blake have a house in town where she's been staying while they are away on a construction job. She enjoys the responsibility of house-sitting and taking care of their dogs. It gives her a sense of independence, a small taste of adulthood. Her daily routine involves working at a daycare, a short drive from Brooklyn, and going for a run in the evening as the sun begins to set. On the morning of July 18, 2018, Mollie wakes up to the chirping of birds outside her window. She goes about her day, attending her job at the daycare, laughing and playing with the children who adore her cheerful demeanor. As evening approaches, she laces up her multicolored neon running shoes. As Mollie steps out of the house, she breathes in the fresh air, feeling the gentle breeze against her face. She sets out on her usual route that takes her out of town, on a gravel road amidst fields that stretch as far as the eye can see. As she runs, her mind drifts to thoughts of the upcoming school year, her friends, and the endless possibilities that await her. Meanwhile, in town, Christina Stewart, a local hairstylist who has known Mollie since she was a child, is on her way to her parents' farm. She crosses paths with Mollie, exchanging waves as they pass each other. Christina continues on her way, unaware that she would be the last known person to see Mollie alive. The night falls and the tranquility of Brooklyn is undisturbed. The hours tick by, transitioning into a new day, a day that would soon stir the peaceful town into a state of anxiety and despair. The morning sun rises, and as the town slowly comes to life, there's an eerie silence at the daycare where Mollie works. Her absence is immediately felt, her laughter and cheerfulness replaced by a growing sense of concern among her colleagues. As the hours pass, the concern deepens. Mollie's family, Dalton, and Blake exchange worried calls. Their voices tremble with a fear they dare not to voice. The unspoken dread hangs heavy in the air as they contact the local law enforcement, marking the beginning of a desperate search that would engulf not only Brooklyn, but capture the attention of the entire nation. The search for Mollie intensifies with each passing hour, the hope of finding her safe and sound slowly diminishing as the reality of the situation sinks in. Unbeknownst to the residents, the events of July 18th have set in motion a chain of events that will leave a lasting scar on the heart of the town, forever altering the lives of its residents. Introducing Private Internet Access, the world's most transparent VPN provider. With over 30 million downloads, they've become the go-to solution for streaming enthusiasts and anyone looking to protect their privacy. Here's some incredible news. By using the link provided, you can enjoy an exclusive 83% discount on private internet access for just $2.03 a month. You can unlock a world of entertainment, and as a bonus, they'll give you 4 extra months completely free. Private internet access is available on all major platforms. Stream your favorite content on your preferred device. Your one subscription is capable of protecting an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. The VPN works seamlessly with all major streaming services, unlocking a world of content no matter where you are. And yes, they support peer-to-peer file sharing. Private internet access prioritizes your privacy. They never record or store user data, and their no logs policy has been proven multiple times in court and verified by a third-party audit from Deloitte. By using private internet access, you can hide your IP address and encrypt your internet connection. Say goodbye to prying eyes. Have commitment issues? Don't. Signing up for private internet access is risk-free. They offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, and their dedicated 24/7 customer service team is always ready to assist you. Link for this amazing offer in the description below. Now let's get back to the video. The once peaceful town of Brooklyn now finds itself amidst a whirlwind of fear and anxiety. The news of Mollie's disappearance sends shockwaves through the community, a place where such incidents are unheard of. The search efforts intensify, with law enforcement and the community coming together. As law enforcement meticulously combs through every piece of evidence they could find, a breakthrough comes when a surveillance video surfaces, showing a black Chevy Malibu appearing multiple times in the area where Mollie was last seen. The unusual reoccurrence of this vehicle in the footage piques the interest of the investigators. The lead takes a significant turn when a deputy spots a similar vehicle on his way home. The unique features of the car, the chrome door handles, and mirrors match the one in the surveillance footage. With a mixture of anticipation and dread, he follows the car, eventually stopping it to engage with the driver, a man named Cristhian Bahena Rivera. Cristhian, a local farm worker, doesn't speak much English, but with the help of a neighbor, communication is established. The deputy gathers initial information and pictures, yet the language barrier proves to be a challenge. The interaction, though brief, opens a new avenue in the investigation. The subsequent days see law enforcement delving deeper into this newfound lead. They decide to approach Cristhian again, hoping to unearth any information regarding Mollie's whereabouts. The atmosphere is tense as they find Cristhian, who agrees to an interview at the sheriff's office. The conversation, facilitated by a native Spanish-speaking officer, starts unfolding bits and pieces of a grim reality. Cristhian initially denies knowing anything about Mollie's disappearance, a facade that crumbles when confronted with a still photograph from the surveillance video. The walls of denial break down, revealing a horrifying truth. Cristhian admits to seeing Mollie on the night she disappeared, a sinister urge that marked the beginning of a horrifying tale. He recounts the chilling details, how he followed Mollie, how his intentions morphed into a menacing pursuit as he jogged to catch up with her. The fear in Mollie's eyes, her desperate attempts to ward him off, is a haunting reality that the officers find hard to digest. The confession sends a shiver down the spines of the hardened law enforcement officers. Following the interview, Cristhian leads the officers to a cornfield off of a desolate road. The sinking sun casts long shadows on the ground, mirroring the dark tale that's being unfolded. The cornfield, a silent witness to the unspeakable horror that transpired, now reveals the buried truth. Mollie's body is located after a brief search, covered in stab wounds, located where Cristhian had predicted. The recovery of Mollie's body sends a shockwave through the town, a gruesome end to the desperate hopes of a community. Let's now fast forward to the trial, where Cristhian stands accused of first degree over the death of Mollie Tibbetts. In its opening statement, the prosecution meticulously outlines the evidence, emphasizing the surveillance footage capturing Cristhian's car repeatedly in the area where Mollie was last seen, Cristhian's initial encounter with law enforcement, and his eventual confession to the crime. They highlight the grim reality of the brutal attack, underscoring how Mollie was ambushed, stabbed multiple times, and left in a cornfield. Through a methodical presentation of evidence, they seek to conclusively establish Cristhian's identity as the perpetrator and his malicious intent on that fateful summer evening.
And the defendant admitted at that time that he drove a black Chevy Malibu. He was the only person that drove that black Chevy Malibu. And then they started talking about Mollie Tibbetts and what he knew about her disappearance. And at first, the defendant denied knowing anything about Mollie's disappearance, except what he'd seen around town with the flyers and news reports. And then he was showed a still photograph from that surveillance video. It was then that the defendant relented on his story, and he admitted that he had seen Mollie the night she disappeared. He admitted that he found her attractive, that she was hot, in his words. And he admitted after he saw her the first time, he circled back to take a second look. Early in the morning, on August 21st, 2018, Deputy Kivy, Officer Romero, and the defendant went to a cornfield off of 460th Avenue, 2478, in rural Powesheet County, near the Powesheet County and Iowa County line. This particular field had a gate and a long, grassy ingress or drive that stretched more than 50 yards into the corn. Defendant was interviewed again at that location, and it was there that he made further admissions. He admitted that he'd seen Mollie the night she disappeared, July 18th, 2018. He admitted that he followed her, that he got out of his car. He admitted to jogging to catch up with her, that he wanted to get close to her. He admitted that Mollie didn't want to have anything to do with him, that she threatened to call the police. And he admitted he became angry at that time. He admitted to fighting with her. And then he says the next thing that he remembers, he's driving in his car, the Malibu, and he notices Mollie's earbuds. And he remembers that Mollie is in his trunk. He admits taking Mollie's body out of the trunk. He admits seeing blood on Mollie's body and neck. He admits putting Mollie over his shoulder. And he described the body as someone who had fainted. He admitted taking Mollie into the field, placing her face up, and putting corn stalks on her body, and then leaving. Law enforcement searched the field off of 460th Avenue, and they found a body, decomposed beyond all recognition, wearing multicolored neon running shoes. An autopsy was done of the body. Identity was confirmed as Mollie Tibbetts. Body was examined and determined that Mollie had been stabbed anywhere from 7 to 12 times in the chest, near the ribs, in the neck, and in the skull. The medical examiner determined that the cause and manner of death was homicide by sharp force injury. The defendant's vehicle was searched, the Chevy Malibu, and blood was found on the trunk liner and in the trunk. Analysis was done of that blood, DNA analysis, and it was matched to the DNA taken from the body. It was Mollie's blood in the defendant's Chevy Malibu.
The defense, for its part, adopts a multifaceted strategy. They emphasize the pressure put on Cristhian during the interrogation, hint at inconsistencies in the evidence, and aim to humanize Cristhian by sharing his immigration story in challenging circumstances. They argue that law enforcement may have prematurely concluded Cristhian's guilt without thoroughly examining other potential leads. The defense also brings forth a DNA expert who discloses that besides Mollie's and Cristhian's DNA, there were other unaccounted DNA profiles found in the trunk liner of Cristhian's vehicle, suggesting the presence of other individuals. This evidence challenges the narrative that Cristhian acted alone.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this case is about a man that immigrated here from Mexico. You will hear about Cristhian's family circumstances and the reasons that he decided to come into this country. Now let's talk about this interrogation. You heard Ms. Romero and I quibble between an interview and an interrogation. Was it an interview? Was it an interrogation? What you will see in this case is there's no dispute on the facts that my client worked 12 hours at a dairy farm, scoop and poop, cleaning grounds, and then at the end of his day, he was brought to the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office. But what the evidence has shown you, and what the evidence will show you, is that there was a systematic confrontation with my client. The first thing is he was talked to. You know, tell me about your life. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your daughter. Tell me about all of those things that are you, that are Cristhian Bahena Rivera. And then they started to confront him with the evidence. They confronted him with this videotape. They confronted him with these pictures. And they said, you know, we don't believe you. We don't believe that you weren't there. And the confrontation continues. until it was put in my client's head, perhaps you blacked out. The state in this case, they got what they wanted, and they closed the case. They got what they needed. There was an intense amount of pressure, that's what the evidence has shown you, to close this case, to arrest someone for this vicious crime. And instead of continuing to work the case, instead of continuing to work the evidence, they just submitted it to you. Now, the first witness that you will hear from today is a Dr. Michael Spence. He is a DNA expert. He used to work at the Indiana State Crime Lab. He's done consulting work in cancer research and other DNA evidence. And what he will tell you is that in that trunk liner, Mollie Tibbetts' DNA was found. But he will also tell you that there were other contributors, that there were other sources, and that because only Cristhian Bahena Rivera's DNA was provided, and Mollie Tibbetts' DNA was provided, because no other DNA was provided, those alleles, those DNA profiles, are unaccounted for. We do not know.
Mollie's boyfriend would testify at the trial. During his testimony, Mollie's boyfriend recounts her joyful personality, describing her as always happy, bubbly, and goofy. He elaborates on Mollie's running habits, detailing that she would run 1 to 6 miles almost daily, typically in the evening as it got cooler, especially during the summer. He also outlines Mollie's typical running attire and equipment, including shorts, sports bra, a muscle shirt, an armband for her phone, wireless earphones for music, and occasionally a Fitbit. From his testimony, it's clear that he loved Mollie and grieved her passing. From his habitual morning messages to Mollie and his recollections about the last communication they had, it is clear that he cared for her.
When was it, whenever you were in high school, did you know Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes, I did.
All right, did you date at all while you were in high school?
No, we didn't. Well, yeah, we started dating my senior year after a football game.
Okay. And where was Mollie Tibbetts in relation to your high school class? What class was she in?
She was 1 grade below mine.
How long had you known Mollie Tibbetts while you were in high school? Did you know her all her life?
I mean, everybody knows each other in Brooklyn High School. We graduated with a class of like 50 people, so.
Okay. So everybody knows everybody?
Yeah.
All right. You had mentioned earlier that you had first started dating Mollie Tibbetts in high school. Is that right?
Yes.
How long did you guys date continuously?
About 3 years.
Was there ever any breakups in that 3 years?
No.
All right. I'm going to show you a photo. I've shown you before. Get to it. All right. What's on the screen, Mr. Jack, is State's Exhibit number 1. Who is that person?
That is Mollie.
Okay. And this picture, do you actually recognize this photo?
Yes, I'm actually standing behind the camera when she took this.
Okay. So is this one of her senior pictures?
Yes.
Okay. Is this the way Mollie appeared? This may be a little bit younger, but just before her death?
Yes.
Okay. How would you describe Mollie's personality?
She was always happy, bubbly, goofy.
And having spent that time around Mollie, the 3 years that you described to us, did you learn what her running habits were?
Yes.
And tell us about those.
She would run pretty much anywhere from 1 to 6 miles almost every day, barring some extreme weather, she would go on a run every day.
Okay. And typically, would she run at any particular time of day?
She'd run later in the evening when it started to get cooler.
Okay. And was that particularly so whenever summer was in full swing?
Yes.
And were you familiar, or I should say, yeah, were you familiar with the type of clothing or equipment that she would run with?
Yes, she would.
Hang on just a second. No. So, as it relates to her clothing, what type of clothes would she run in?
She would run in shorts and a sports bra, sometimes like a one of those cut-off muscle shirts, I guess, that she stole from my closet, and then an armband to keep her phone in, and then she had some wireless earphones for music.
Okay, those wireless earphones, were those a gift from you?
Yes.
All right. What would she do with her hair typically?
Wear it up.
Wear it up how?
Like a ponytail, I suppose.
Okay. Would she ever wear any type of headband or headgear?
Yeah, sometimes. I know she had some, but...
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Did she also have any other type of timing devices that she would wear with her?
She wore a Fitbit as well.
Did you receive at some point in time a call from one of Mollie's friends?
Yes.
And did you learn some information from that caused you to become worried?
Yes.
What was it?
I've received a call from Emily Fenner, one of her coworkers at the daycare, and she said that Mollie had not called or showed up for work.
Okay. The following day, did you make attempts to contact her?
I don't remember.
Did you ever join in the search
Yes.
for Mollie? Can you
Yes, I did.
describe what it was that you did?
Me and my brother actually went out that night, and we drove around for a long time, and then we were just kind of checking everywhere that we can do. But then there was a more organized search put on by the fire department and the police department before the whole thing went through.
Mollie was your true love, right?
I would say so, yes.
You had planned on marrying this woman, right?
Yes.
And you were devoted to Mollie, right?
Yes.
People have described it as a true love story, right?
Yes.
Is that how you felt about her?
Yes.
The officer who interviewed Cristhian would also testify, detailing the interview and Cristhian's subsequent confession. The officer begins by detailing the initial moments of the interview. She mentions that Cristhian seemed nervous, but was cooperative. She recalls Cristhian's reactions when shown the surveillance footage of the black Chevy Malibu. Cristhian's initial denials are highlighted. He claimed he did not know Mollie and had no reason to be in that area. But the officer's persistence, combined with the undeniable evidence from the footage, began to crack his facade. The officer describes the moment Cristhian finally acknowledged the Chevy Malibu was his. This admission was a turning point in the interview, linking him directly to the area where Mollie was last seen. Cristhian's narrative begins to shift. He admits to seeing Mollie running that evening, a detail he hadn't volunteered before.
All right. After the initial part of the interview, did you then turn to whether or not the defendant knew or had seen Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
Do you recall how far into the interview with him, as far as time, that you raised Mollie Tibbetts for the first time?
Yes, I do not recall the exact time, but it was approximately an hour and 45 minutes into the interview.
And do you know if it was before or after he had had something to eat? Do you recall?
I do not recall.
Did you then begin to gather facts or attempt to gather facts about the defendant's possible knowledge of Mollie Tibbetts' disappearance?
Yes.
What does he initially say with regard to Mollie Tibbetts?
Mr. Rivera told me that he had no idea who she was, and she told me that he had never seen her.
Did you have a photo of Mollie Tibbetts that you showed the defendant?
At that time, I pulled out one of the posters, the flyers that had Mollie Tibbetts' face. I put it in front of the Mr. Rivera, and he looked at it, and he goes, "Yes, I have seen them around town. They are all over town." And at that point, he also added that he remembered seeing the Mollie's boyfriend at one of the local gas stations.
But initially, he denied having ever known Mollie Tibbetts. Is that true?
That is true.
Or having any contact with her?
That is true. He stated he kept a picture of, or the copy of the poster flyer in his car.
At all points forward in the interview, Ms. Romero, sorry, have to wait for them to switch. Great. At all points forward in the interview, Ms. Romero, with the defendant, was your understanding that you were talking about the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts with the defendant?
Yes.
And when you use the terms her or she, were you referring to Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
Was it your understanding that the defendant did the same?
Yes.
All right. Was there a time then, just after raising bringing in Mollie Tibbetts to the interview, was there a time during the interview that you then showed him a photo of a vehicle that was taken from surveillance in Brooklyn from the home of Logan Collins?
Yes, so I was provided with 3 pictures of a black vehicle that was obtained, I was told, by one of the DCI agents from the Logan Collins surveillance video. That photo showed the black Malibu.
Okay. And had you received those 3 photos at one of the breaks that you had taken during the interview?
Yes.
While you were at the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
Did you show those photos to Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
Yes, I did.
Hang on a second, sorry. How did you display them to him?
I was just going to say that I laid them out in front of him, the 3 pictures together.
Okay.
I said, can you please look at them for me? He looked at them, and his response was, "Yes, that is my car."
Did you even have to ask him if it was his car, or did he just volunteer that?
He volunteered to say that that was his car.
Were these were still shots taken from the surveillance camera? Is that right?
That is what I was told, yes.
Did it have a time and date stamp on it?
Yes, they did, which I pointed out to Mr. Rivera. He stated that, yes, it was 1948, the time, and July 18, the date.
Okay, so 1948 would be 7:48 p.m.?
Yes, Army time.
And the date would have been July 18th?
Yes.
So that date and time stamp would have been on the photocopy of the photo that you showed him?
Yes.
Did you ask him if he was the sole owner of the Malibu?
I asked him if he was driving the vehicle that date and time. He said yes, that was me. I asked him, is anyone else in the car with you at that time, in that particular date? He goes, no, it was just me.
Were you aware at that point, Ms. Romero, that a runner had been seen on the surveillance video taken from Logan Collins' residence?
Yes, there was one of the pictures. It was shown that there was a person.
Okay. And did you point that out to the defendant?
Yes, I pointed out to the person that was running, and that's what I told Mr. Rivera. You see this person that is running? He said, yes, she was running.
Okay. So he used the term she.
Yes.
Okay, now the picture that you would have shown him would have been essentially a shadowed dot. Is that right?
That is right.
All right. Was there any way to tell in the photo that you used with the defendant if it was male or female?
No.
And he used the term her.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Romero, at this point, did the defendant then describe seeing anyone running in Brooklyn at about that time on that date?
Yes. He went on describing that it was a female girl running.
Did he say at this point how many times he observed this female runner while in Brooklyn?
Mr. Rivera told me that he saw her 3 times. He saw her first, turn around, came back. He stated that she even waved at him and smiled. And then he went back, and that is when he continued doing what he was doing at that time.
What was it that he was supposedly doing in Brooklyn?
He stated that he was trying to find his way around town, that he was heading to his uncle's residence to obtain a vacuum cleaner.
So he told you that he saw a female running
Yes.
on 3 different occasions. Did he ever place himself out on the county blacktop east of Brooklyn?
The way that Mr. Rivera described that first sight of the female was, it was in a paved road near a curve.
Did he ever indicate that he got out of his car or engaged her in any way?
Not at that particular time.
All right. So he never would have had any contact with Mollie Tibbetts other than, at least that's what he said, never had any contact with her other than seeing her.
At that time, yes.
After seeing her the last time, the 3rd time, where did he say he went in Brooklyn?
Mr. Rivera told me that he lost track of her, that he lost sight of her, and continued on his way to pick up the vacuum cleaner.
Did he then say where he went?
Into town, I am guessing, because he told me that he was going to his uncle's residence, which it was in the trailer court inside Brooklyn.
Now, did you have a discussion with the defendant about the appearance of the runner, female runner that he saw?
Yes, I asked her what he thought of the female runner first, and his answer was, I found her attractive. I asked him what she was wearing. He said black shirts, maybe a top sport bra, and he continued describing. He did not say the name of it, but he just said one of those things that you put on to measure your steps or to hold your cell phone.
Or to what? Hold your cell
Hold
phone?
the cell phone.
Okay. Did he ever use any other term other than attractive to describe the runner that he saw?
He stated at one point that he thought that she was hot.
Cristhian's confession is detailed. He speaks of the urge to approach Mollie, of following her, and the subsequent confrontation. The officer emphasizes that before the interview, she had no knowledge of where Mollie's body was. It was Cristhian's directions, his detailed account, that led them to the cornfield and the tragic discovery.
So later on in the morning, at approximately 4:30 a.m., did you, Cristhian Bahena Rivera, and another officer leave the sheriff's office?
Yes, Officer Kivi, an agent from FBI, and myself and Mr. Rivera left the office.
And where did you go?
We went to Mr. Rivera's residence and the farm that he worked at. I believe it was
Yerby
a
Farms?
property. Yes.
All right. That's an area in southeast of Brooklyn, correct?
I'm not familiar with the area, but yes, that's Powashik County.
Then did you proceed to a rural area in far eastern Powashik County?
We landed in a cornfield.
Yes.
I asked Mr. Rivera to give me all the details that he could remember since he approached Mollie Tibbetts.
All right. What was the first thing the defendant told you about seeing a female on July 18th of 2018 near Brooklyn, Iowa at or near 7:45 p.m.?
He told me he saw her running, again, 3 times. One of those times he parked his car behind her, ran after her or jogged after her, came close to her that she noticed him. She turns around, makes the attempt to use his cell phone to call the police. At this point, Mr. Rivera told me that he got angry and that is when they started fighting.
Okay. All right, let's break that apart just a bit. So the defendant on this occasion, this is while you were seated in the car roadside that we just saw, correct?
Yes,
All right. He admits seeing Mollie Tibbetts,
yes,
and he indicates that he followed her.
yes,
Okay, whenever you say that he said that he followed her, did he indicate that he followed her in his car for a period?
yes.
Did he then tell you that he stopped his car
He said I parked my car, yes,
and he got out of his vehicle?
and I started jogging behind her.
Okay. Is there another officer in the vehicle that you were in interviewing him that also spoke Spanish?
Yes, Sergeant Jeff Fink speaks Spanish.
And does Officer Fink ask him if that was on 385th Avenue?
Yes, he did.
And what did the defendant respond?
Mr. Rivera confirmed that it was.
Confirmed that he had seen Mollie Tibbetts on 385th Avenue?
Yes.
You told us that he jogged towards her and that a cell phone was used, is that correct?
That is what he said. Mr. Rivera said that she made the attempt to use the cell phone, later telling me that she told him that she was going to call the police.
And what was the defendant's reaction to Mollie Tibbetts' threat to call the police?
Mr. Rivera said that he got angry.
Did he indicate that there was any type of physical altercation?
After he stated that he got angry, he stated that they started fighting.
Was he any more specific at this point as to what the fight was?
He said that Mollie tried to slap him and was screaming at him.
Did this make him angry?
Mr. Rivera said that this is when he became angry.
Now, what is the next thing that Cristhian Rivera told you that he remembers while he was on this road with Mollie Tibbetts?
So once Mr. Rivera told me that he got angry and he remembered them starting fighting, he stated that usually when he becomes angry or when he gets mad, he blacks out. So the next thing that he told me was that he remembered him driving and looking down into his legs and finding the earbuds that belonged to Mollie, and that is when he remembered that he had Mollie in the back of his vehicle in the trunk.
He did not tell you that he remembered putting her in the trunk.
He stated that he did not remember putting her inside the car. He did not remember how she got there, but he did remember how he took her out of the vehicle.
Okay. But he did remember her being in the trunk.
Yes.
And where were the earbuds at specifically in his car? Where did he Mollie's or the earbuds he described? Where did he put them?
He stated that he was driving, looked down on his legs. That's how he put it, and that's when he saw them.
Did the defendant indicate to you where he took Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes, at the location where we were at
To a cornfield?
to the cornfield.
Does the defendant describe at this point any injuries to Mollie Tibbetts' body?
He remembers that there was blood. He told me that he took her out of the car, put her on top of his shoulder, carried her inside into the cornfield, laying her down, covering her with corn leaves, and leaving right away.
Is he specific at all concerning the injuries to Mollie Tibbetts as to what part of her body those injuries were located?
At one point, I asked him, was it the head that it was bleeding? Was it the forehead? He stated he, with his hand, he motioned the neck.
So did he actually say the neck, or did he just point to his neck?
He stated and he pointed to the neck.
Did he describe for you how her body felt when he carried her?
I asked him how the her body felt against his body when he was carrying her. He told me that it felt like a person that had just fainted.
Did the defendant ever tell you or remember for you any weapon that was used to cause the injuries to Mollie Tibbetts that would have caused her to bleed?
No, he did not.
He couldn't remember it?
He could not remember.
At an eventful twist of the trial, Cristhian, the defendant, would testify. According to Cristhian, others were responsible for the attack on Mollie. He testifies that after taking a shower, he steps out and is immediately confronted by an unexpected and alarming sight: two individuals in his living room. Cristhian describes them as wearing dark clothing, one noticeably bigger and bulkier, the other similar in stature to himself but slightly stronger. The bigger of the two intruders is armed with a gun, while the smaller one wields a knife. These men, shrouded in mystery, command Cristhian to not act foolishly, assuring him that everything will be okay. Under duress, Cristhian and the men leave his house and get into his car. The bigger man takes the back seat, while the smaller, knife-wielding individual sits beside Cristhian. As they drive, they encounter a jogger, whom Cristhian later identifies as Mollie Tibbetts. The journey takes a sinister turn when the men instruct Cristhian to stop the car before reaching town. They exit the vehicle, open the trunk, and after a brief period, close it again. The men return, taking his keys and his phone, and ominously warn him against speaking of the incident, threatening harm to his daughter and his ex, whom they claim to know. Upon their departure, Cristhian musters the courage to inspect the trunk. To his horror, he discovers Mollie Tibbetts' body. Initially, he notices slight movement, but it soon becomes apparent that she is no longer alive. Overcome with fear and convinced that contacting the police would only worsen the situation, Cristhian decides against it. In a state of shock and desperation, Cristhian removes Mollie's body from the trunk. The weight of the situation bears heavily upon him, leaving him to grapple with the consequences of his actions and the haunting events of that fateful day.
After you took a shower, what did you do?
Salí del baño.
I left the bathroom.
What did you see?
Dos personas en mi sala.
Two people in my living room.
Those two people in your living room, how were they dressed?
Con suéteres y tapados de la cara.
With sweaters and their faces covered.
Describe the color of the clothing that they were wearing.
Era ropa oscura.
It was dark clothing.
Can you describe what the build of either of these people?
Uno era un poco grande y gordo, el otro era mi misma estatura y un poco musculoso.
One of them was bigger and a little bit fatter, and one of them was about my stature and a little bit stronger, burly.
Did those men have any sort of weapons?
Sí.
Yes.
What describe which man had which weapon?
El más grande miré que tenía un arma y el otro tenía una navaja.
The bigger one, I could see that he had a gun, and the smaller one, I could see that he had a knife.
Describe the gun.
Pues no sé mucho de armas, solamente puedo decir que era negra.
I don't know a lot about guns. I can just say that it was black.
What about the knife?
Era una navaja mediana, color camuflajeado.
It was a medium-sized knife, camouflaged color.
What did these men say or do?
Que no hiciera nada tonto y todo iba a estar bien.
That I shouldn't do anything stupid and everything was going to be okay.
Once you left the house, what happened?
Subimos al carro.
We got into the car.
And when you get into the car, which man gets in which seat?
El más grande en la parte de atrás y el más pequeño a un lado mío.
The bigger one in the back seat, and the other one gets in the seat beside me.
So the smaller one is the one with the knife, is that right?
Sí.
Yes.
When you followed that road, did you see anyone?
Sí.
Yes.
Who did you see?
A una persona corriendo.
A person jogging.
And sir, did you know that person at that time?
No.
No.
Ever met Mollie Tibbetts before?
No.
No.
But now do you recognize or believe that person was Mollie Tibbetts?
Así es.
That's right.
So sir, you're driving back on that road, back into town, is that right?
Sí.
Yes. And at some point, before you get back into town, were you directed to stop?
Correcto.
Correct. Who told you to stop?
La persona que estaba a un lado mío.
The person that was next to me.
So the man in the front seat, is that right?
Correcto.
Correct.
Also the man with the knife.
Sí.
Yes.
What happened next?
Uno de ellos se bajó del carro.
One of them got out of the car.
Which one?
El de la parte de enfrente.
The one that was on the front.
So the guy with the knife.
Correcto.
Correct.
What did he do?
Él solo empezó a ir hacia enfrente, hacia la dirección del pueblo.
Well, he just started going towards forward, towards the town direction.
How long was he gone?
Alrededor de 10, 12 minutos.
Around 10 to 12 minutes.
The guy in the back, was he doing anything?
No, solamente estaba callado en la parte de atrás.
No, he was only quiet in the back part.
Did he seem nervous?
Cuando empezó a pasar el tiempo, él empezó a ponerse nervioso, a murmurar en la parte de atrás.
Well, when the time started going by, he started kind of whispering in the back.
Did you hear him say anything?
Pues se escuchaban muchas cosas, pero lo único que se pudo escuchar fue que él dijo, "Come on, ya."
You could hear a lot of things, but I guess what I heard him saying is, "Come on, Jack." Around like 12 minutes after, that person comes back to the car.
And when they come back to the car, do they get in?
Él se sube.
He gets in.
What happens next?
Me piden que siga manejando.
They ask me to continue driving.
Did you continue to drive into town?
Sí.
Yes.
Did you reach town?
No.
No.
Were you directed to stop at some point?
Sí.
Yes.
Can you describe for the jury approximately how far you traveled?
No más de 300 metros.
Not more than 300 meters.
What were you directed to do once you drove 300 meters?
Que me detuviera y les prestara mis llaves.
To stop and to hand them my keys.
What happened next?
Primero la persona que estaba en la parte de adelante se bajó del carro y después el que estaba en la parte de atrás.
Well, first the person that was in front got out of the car, and then the person who was behind.
What happened next?
Escuché que abrieron la cajuela.
I've heard them opening the trunk.
What happened next?
Solamente sentí un movimiento en el carro y se volvió a cerrar la cajuela.
I just heard a movement in the car, and then that the trunk closed.
Did the men get back in the vehicle?
Sí.
Yes.
What happened next?
Me pidieron que me diera la vuelta.
They asked me to turn around.
Did you do that?
Sí.
Yes.
What did they say next?
Que continuaba manejando y me indica que vaya hacia la terracería.
They asked me to continue driving and to go towards the gravel road.
Did you do that?
Sí.
Yes.
Once you pull in, what happens next?
Solo me piden que apague el carro.
They only asked me to turn the car off,
So, y empiezan a bajarse del carro.
and they start getting off the car.
So they get out, is that right?
Sí.
Yes.
Did they take your keys?
Sí, tomaron mis llaves y mi teléfono.
Yes, they took my keys and my phone.
What happened next?
Antes de irse, uno de ellos me dice que no fuera a decir nada de lo que había pasado.
Before they leave, one of them tells me not to say anything about what had happened,
Que ellos conocían a Iris y conocían a mi hija.
that they knew Iris and that they knew my daughter,
Que si decía algo, ellos se iban a encargar de ellas.
that if I said something, they would take care of them.
Did you look in the trunk?
Sí.
Yes,
What did you see?
Un cuerpo.
a body.
Was that the body of Mollie Tibbetts?
Sí.
Yes.
At that point in time, did it look like she was alive?
Al principio miré como algún movimiento, pero después no miré ningún tipo de movimiento.
Well, at the beginning, I saw like a little bit of movement, but then after, there was no movement.
Did she have injuries to her body?
No miré.
I did not look.
What did you do next?
Estuve un par de minutos pensando qué hacer, pero fue cuando decidí solo bajarla del carro.
Well, I stayed there a couple of minutes thinking what to do. And then I decided to take the body out.
Why didn't you call the police, sir?
Porque estaba asustado.
Because I was scared.
Why were you scared?
Porque si hubiera llamado a la policía, esto es algo que no se miraría nada bien.
Well, if I would have called the police, it's something that it wouldn't have been seen good. It wouldn't have been right.
Did you have any reason to believe that Mollie Tibbetts' life could be saved?
No.
No.
Cristhian addresses the alleged confession. He recounts the grueling 11-hour interrogation. Initially, the questions are routine, probing into his background and daily activities. But as the hours wear on, the tone shifts dramatically. The interrogators start to accuse him, presenting evidence that unnervingly ties him to the crime. The interrogation takes a more accusatory turn when the officers present the idea that Cristhian might be mentally unwell. They speculate about his mental state, hinting at the possibility of him being sick or forgetful. Finally, Cristhian testifies directly about his intentions. He explains that he never planned to tell the truth about what happened that night. His primary concern is his daughter's safety, a factor that overshadows everything else. In his mind, revealing the truth could endanger her, a risk he's not willing to take.
All right, sir, let's go through this interview. You were interrogated for over 11 hours, is that right?
Sí.
Yes.
Describe how the interview progressed through those 11 hours.
Pues al principio me empezaron a hacer preguntas normales, como de dónde era, cómo me llamaba, todo lo básico.
Well, at the beginning, they were asking me common questions like where I was from. I need to clarify.
Mi rutina.
My routine and all that.
Tell me how the interview progressed.
Pues ellos me empezaron a acusar con cosas.
Well, they started accusing me with things.
What sorts of things did they accuse you with?
Con un par de fotos.
With a couple of pictures.
Ellos dijeron que habían encontrado cabello de la muchacha en mi cajuela
They said that they have found a woman's hair in my trunk
y que habían ubicado su teléfono junto al mío.
and that they have found her phone or pointed my phone her phone with mine.
Did they ever use the phrase, help yourself?
Sí.
Yes.
And what did you take that to mean when they used that phrase?
Pues que si yo los ayudaba, les decía lo que ellos querían escuchar, me podían ayudar.
Well, that if I helped them, if I told them what they wanted to hear, that they would help me.
Did they confront you or did they tell you that often?
Sí.
Yes.
At some point, you said that you blacked out. Is that right?
Sí.
Yes.
Was that your idea?
No, ellos lo dijeron primero.
No. They said it first.
And specifically, was there a suggestion made that you might be crazy?
Objections clause leading.
Overruled.
Algo así dijeron que personas a veces pueden estar enfermos y olvidar cosas.
Something like that. Something like that sometimes people can be sick and they can forget things.
Now, sir, did you intend to tell these men the truth about what really happened that night?
No,
No.
Why not?
porque mi mente tenía a mi hija.
Because in my mind, I had my daughter.
So no matter what happened, you did not plan to tell them what really happened.
Sí.
Right.
So you drive out, well, you don't drive, but you ride out to the body, is that right?
Sí.
Yes.
Were you able to provide assistance in finding Mollie Tibbetts?
Sí.
Yes.
Did they seem to have some idea already where she was?
No podría estar seguro de eso.
I can't be sure about that.
Despite Cristhian's insistence that the admission was coerced, the jury would find him guilty of first degree for the death of Mollie Tibbetts. He was subsequently sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. So, what may have led Cristhian to commit such a senseless and random act on Mollie? The chilling case of Mollie Tibbetts and the subsequent behavior exhibited by Cristhian during the investigation and trial brings to the forefront the psychopathy theory. Psychopathy is a personality disorder characterized by persistent antisocial behavior, impaired empathy and remorse, and bold, disinhibited, and egotistical traits. Cristhian's apparent lack of emotion and remorse throughout the process raises questions about whether psychopathic tendencies played a role in the events that transpired. One of the hallmark traits of psychopathy is a profound lack of empathy. Individuals with psychopathic tendencies often struggle to understand or relate to the emotions of others. Cristhian's apparent indifference to the gravity of his situation, as evidenced by his demeanor during the trial, aligns with this characteristic. His inability to genuinely feel or express remorse suggests a deep emotional deficiency. Impulse control is a significant challenge for many with psychopathic tendencies. Rather than premeditating their actions, they might act on a fleeting impulse, especially when faced with perceived threats or challenges. Cristhian's actions on the night of Mollie's disappearance could have been a result of such impulsive behavior, driven by a momentary urge rather than a calculated plan. While the psychopathy theory offers a lens through which we can attempt to understand Cristhian's actions and behavior, it's crucial to note that this analysis is not meant to absolve Cristhian for his horrific actions, which are nobody's but his own. Do you think Cristhian committed this horrific crime, or was the confession coerced? Why would Cristhian commit such a horrific crime in the first place? We want to give a big thank you to everyone over on Patreon. We want to give a big shout out to Nexus, Big Pepperoni Pizza, Chrissy R, and Dulce P. If you want to watch ad-free and uncensored versions of all Wicked videos, feel free to join our Patreon, link in the description. Thank you for watching, and join us next time when we explore the psychological maze of some of the most wicked people.